Hello, learners. Hello, learners. All right, so in the previous lessons, we have discussed how food is processed by different organisms. We focused on different mechanisms of various organisms and how they adapt to perform the major stages in food processing. Okay, so as we can recall, all organisms need to break down food to obtain energy that will serve as fuel in maintaining cellular processes and making molecules essential for homeostasis and so far for staying alive. Today, we are going to talk about food and how our body acts on it. So I have here, as you can see, the link. So in this video, um, you are going to explore when it comes to what you bite, chew, and swallow. Your choices have a direct and long-lasting effect on the most powerful organ in your body. This is also true to other organs in your body. That is why choosing a healthy meal requires you to have knowledge about what is in your food. Okay? So let's explore ano nga ba yung mga from the different food sources, ano nga ba yung nakukuha nating nutrients. Is it good or bad ba sa ating health? Broadly classifying, the food we eat can be categorized into four biomolecules, and we're going to explore that. So, namely the carbohydrate, lipids, protein, and nucleic acid. So, they are the so-called the biomolecules. Okay, so one of these or three are considered as macromolecules because they contain polymers, except from the nucleic acid. Okay. All right. So in chemistry, a polymer is defined as a natural or synthetic macromolecule. Remember, when we say macromolecule, macro means big. Ayan. So it composed of repeating units of smaller molecule called monomer. As an analogy, take the train and the train cars as an example. The train cars are the monomers in the whole train, or when we attach them so that they can appear like the train we are familiar with, we make a polymer. So those train cars are the chops of train cars are the monomer. So polymers are broken through to monomers through reaction. Remember this term called hydrolysis. Okay, it is termed as such because during the process, a water molecule is added to the existing bonds that connect one another or one monomer to another. On the other hand, polymers are created through dehydration reaction. In this process, water molecules are removed from the chains of monomers. So just remember this. When we dehydrate, we make. When we hydrolyze, we break. Now, let us explore carbohydrates as one of our macromolecule. So, the usable energy in food is measured in units called, as we know, calories. Some food labels may also opt to use kilocalories, and according to some, agencies, especially the health government, the total number of calories a person needs each day depends on many factors, such as the person's age, sex, height, weight, and level of physical activity. No matter how varied our required calorie intake may be, it is estimated that about two-thirds of that are used by the body in keeping body's temperature constant, repairing internal organs and skin, keeping the heart beating and lungs breathing, and ensuring the proper chemical balance inside and outside the body cells. That's how important carbohydrate is. To define, carbohydrates are the most important and least expensive source of food energy. They are also among the most abundant in supply, like our rice, diba? They are the family of compounds made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and these elements are arranged into rings, and these rings may be strung together to form chains depending if they are simple or complex carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates are those sugars with only one or two rings. Okay? Specifically and respectively, they are called monosaccharides. Remember this class. The monosaccharides and disaccharides. For example, glucose. Glucose is a simple sugar Therefore, it is called monosaccharide. And we're going to explore that later on. So now, let's explore or let's try to relate this concept of polymer versus monomer. If we have a starch as the polymer, what would be its monomer? And we're going to deal with that. Okay, so let us explore different types of carbohydrates. And we have here the first one, which is the monosaccharide. Mono means one, so these are the simple sugars, okay? So monosaccharides have three different types, namely the glucose, the galactose, and fructose. And glucose is used in dextrose, blood sugar, the so-called blood sugar, and the form utilized by the human body, and usually we can able to find it or yeah in hospitals and other medical areas. And galactose here is found in milk and milk products, while fructose are found in fruits and honey. Okay, so let's have a mnemonics for you to easily remember these terms. So remember the G, F, G. Baliktarin lang natin para magkagawa tayo ng magandang mnemonics. And GFG or the glucose, the fructose and galactose, pwede natin siya lagyan ng mnemonics. And we have here, go for, yung isa sa pinaka-famous nating mga yell. Go for gold. Ayan. Go for gold. Remember these terms and these mnemonics. The go for gold or the glucose, the fructose, and the galactose. Okay, so the next type of carbohydrates is the disaccharide. A disaccharide contains two monosaccharides linked together by a dehydration synthesis reaction. Remember the term dehydration, meaning we are creating or we are making. When we dehydrate, we make. Some common disaccharides are maltose, that's usually derived from barley, sucrose, that's sugarcane and sugar beets, and lactose that can be found in milk. Okay, so just like earlier, we're going to form as well and create a mnemonics for better retention. So the three types of disaccharides are M for maltose, M, S for sucrose, and lactose. Remember this mnemonics. My, oops, my sweet, okay, alright. My sweet, oops, it's really hard. My sweet love, my sweet love. Remember the three types of disaccharides, the MSL or my sweet love, are M for maltose, S for sucrose, and L for lactose. Okay then, so these are the different components of the three common types of disaccharides, the maltose, sucrose, and lactose. Maltose is composed of glucose or 2-glucose that can usually found in malt, while sucrose, these are, or the components of this are, or the two monosaccharides are the glucose and fructose that can be found in regular table sugar, sugarcane, and sugar beets, while lactose, the two saccharides are glucose and galactose that can be found in milk and other milk products. Alright, and the last type of carbohydrates are polysaccharides. Remember, poly means many, so polysaccharides are complex carbohydrates. They are such as the starch, glycogen, and cellulose, made up of sugar molecules linked to a branch of chain structure. Okay, so we're going to explore sa next slide natin yung different or we can able to found those sugar. But first, let's have a mnemonics for starch, glycogen, and cellulose. the S, G, and C. S for she, got, G for got. Oh, I'm sorry. So hard. Got a call. Ayan. I hope this can help you guys to better remember these terms. Ayan. She got a call. These are the different types of polysaccharides. The starch, the glycogen, and the cellulose. Now, let us explore the different sources of this polysaccharide. We have here the starch or the so-called amylose. These are the storage form of glucose in plants. While glycogen, these are the storage form of glucose in animals that are usually stored in the liver and muscles. While the cellulose, as we know, these are the structural material in plant cell wall, for example, in wood and wood fiber and other plants that cannot be digested by humans and only by ruminants. Okay, so these are the different health benefits of carbohydrates. It is the main energy or the source of the main energy for the body, help to get or to sleep better, help to prevent diseases, used to control weight. Why? Syempre kung if you are aiming to lose weight, you must, um, what do you call this? You must, you know, you must control the intake of your carbohydrates sa iyong diet, as well as to help to keep memory sharp. It flips move, provide fiber to the body, prevents blood clots, improves the digestive system, and the best nutrients for athletes kasi marami siyang laman ng mga, nutrients. And, this is good, really source for energy of our body. As we are all aware, carbohydrates are needed by our body, diba? Your brain needs them to think, and your muscles need them during contraction. And all cells need to make ATP. Saan kayo makakuha ng ang ATP? As we know, these ATPs are the energy currency of cells to operate cellular processes. Ganun ka-importante ang ating mga carbohydrates. After the carbohydrates, next stop would be proteins. Okay, proteins are, as we know, are the body's building blocks. They are composed of monomers called amino acid. Remember, the building block of proteins are the amino acid. Okay, which are usually, as we know, they are made up of carbon. Ano ba ba? That's chinops. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and sometimes sulfur. Okay, the amino acid is the building block of protein, the building block of proteins, amino acid. Okay, so meat, as we know, is a rich source of this protein. When we eat meat, the proteins in it are first digested in our stomach and fully digested into its monomers called amino acid. Okay, the monomer of protein. And syempre, ano yung polymer natin? The polymer is the protein, and the monomers. Okay. Medyo nahihirapan akong magsulat by using just, this one. Alright, so, yeah. These amino acids are the ones which get absorbed usually via active transport in the epithelial cells lining of our intestine or the small intestine, where you have already discussed how this process takes place. So most enzymes are proteins. They act as catalysts and it has a chemical reaction, and these enzymes together with other molecules make the materials or so-called the building blocks needed by cells to create another needed molecule. Proteins, remember, can also be found in plant sources like beans and nuts, and they are needed for muscle maintenance. We also rely on them in manufacturing almost everything in our body, from something as small as our antibodies to our hair and nails. Again, In this slide, this shows that proteins are the building blocks of our body and these are composed of called amino acids, as what I've discussed earlier, which are made up of the following elements: the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sometimes sulfur. So as you can see, here's a figure that we have the structural component of proteins, the amino group, the carboxyl group, and the R group. And this can be tackled sa inyong bio 2 next year. Another thing about proteins, so most enzymes are proteins. Remember, they act as a catalyst that has in chemical reactions. These enzymes, together with other molecules, make the materials or so-called the building blocks needed by cells to create another needed molecule. Tandaan natin na enzymes are very important for, for the different processes or activities inside our cells. Okay, so let's explore nucleic acid. Remember, nucleic acid is not a macromolecule, but micromolecule. Okay? Ano nga ba itong nucleic acids natin? They are the genetic material. We consume almost everything that has nucleus and DNA or RNA in it, like plant cells and animal cells. DNA and RNA are broken down to its monomers called the nucleotides. Nucleotides have carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus. As you can see here, these are the different nucleotide bases of DNA. The guanine that pairs with cytosine, the adenine that pairs with thymine. And the last type of macromolecules that we have here are lipids. And lipids are hydrophobic. When we say hydrophobic, they do not mix with water. Ayan, they are hydrophobic molecules that contain carbon and hydrogen. They include fats, oils, waxes, certain vitamins, and hormones. And remember, fats are the second energy source next to carbohydrates. So you can see here's a figure. We have one example of lipids. Here are phospholipid structure. So you can see meron siyang phosphate group, polar head, and non-polar tails, and composed only of carbon and hydrogen elements. Alright, so these are the different foods that are high in fat content, okay? The fatty meats and fish, cheese, butter, avocado, nuts and seeds, and chocolate. So fats are integral to maintaining the structure of our cell membranes. They are also precursor molecules in making hormones. And it also the energy storage. It stores twice as much energy as carbohydrates do, and they can be found both in plants and animal sources, like like this food sa figure natin. Alright, to summarize the key points in our discussion, this is the figure, a parallel table that can be found sa Reese Campbell book about biology. Now, you have already familiar with the major classes of molecules that make up your food and their corresponding monomers. And now, let's explore how our body can able to digest them. Now, let us explore the chemical digestion of carbohydrates. When we take in carbohydrate-rich food, or more specifically starch-rich food, enzymes present in our oral cavity in our mouth begin digesting them. Our saliva contains salivary amylase or the thiolin, the enzyme responsible for breaking down the amylose into smaller polypeptides and maltose, dextrins, and other types of carbohydrates, the polysaccharides, sucrose, and lactose, and maltose. Okay, so maltose, as we know, is a disaccharide consisting of two glucose molecules linked together. In the small intestine, these disaccharides are further digested into monosaccharides by what? The pancreatic amylase. These are enzymes secreted by the pancreas. Other carbohydrates are digested by enzymes secreted by the small intestine. For example, sucrose is digested by the enzyme sucrase to yield glucose and fructose, while lactose is digested by lactase to generate glucose and galactose, the simple sugars. These all happen in the intestines, and when they are in the simplest form, they move inside the epithelial cells lining in the small intestines and finally transported in the liver or in the capillaries for processing in the liver. But some people cannot, produce sufficient lactase to digest lactose. That is why some of us are lactose intolerant. Okay? Remember, these are the different processes on how our body digests carbohydrates. All right, so this is the summary of how our body hydrolyzes carbohydrates that we are ingesting. Okay, first in our mouth, in our oral cavity, we have the salivary glands that produce salivary amylase, so that these carbohydrates can be broken down into polysaccharides and disaccharides, and then by some pancreatic amylase from the pancreas in our intestines, these polysaccharides and disaccharides will further digested into monosaccharides at the small intestine so that our body can able to absorb them. Okay, so let's have here a quick facts. Did you know that many East Asians and Native Americans, up to 90% in some ethnic groups, become lactose intolerant after the early childhood years as their genes direct slowdown in the production of lactase. Is an enzyme. A nearly opposite ratio in the lactase non-persistence exists in people of Northern European descent who can digest dairy throughout adulthood. What is the difference? To find out more, this is the link that you need to explore. Okay? This time, let us explore the chemical digestion of proteins. As we know, proteins have polypeptides as their polymers, and these must be broken down to their monomers called amino acids. Therefore, before being absorbed by the epithelial cells of our small intestine. Okay? So as we have discussed earlier, protein digestions begin in the stomach. Okay? So meron tayong uh, five process here na nakikita natin sa figure. Five steps. First, we have number one for partial protein digestion by the enzyme pepsin and stomach acids located sa ating stomach. Number two, further protein digestion by enzymes released by the pancreas. Three, final digestion of protein to amino acids takes place mostly inside the small intestine. Remember that. And number four, amino acids absorbed into the portal vein and transported to the liver. Tinatransport lahat ng mga na-absorb ng ating small intestine sa liver. From there, they enter and the general bloodstream and throughout the body. Okay, and the last one, little dietary protein is present in feces. Okay, so the enzyme pepsin, remember here, protein, the initial process of protein or digesting of protein happens usually sa stomach. So, by the enzyme pepsin, which is activated by the action of the hydrochloric acid, it breaks down polypeptides, the polymers of proteins, into smaller polypeptides called amino acids later on. So this occurs in the stomach, and after chyme is secreted in the duodenum, the first part of our small intestine, pancreatic trypsin and chymotrypsin further break down the small polypeptides into even smaller ones. Okay? Unlike pepsin, which works efficiently in acidic environments, trypsin and chymotrypsin requires a basic environment to be able to perform their function. So further, through the action of the pancreatic carboxypeptidase that is released by our liver, I mean the pancreas, the smaller polypeptides are further broken down. Dipeptidase, carbopeptidase, and aminopeptidase cleaved one amino acid at a time from a dipeptide or a polypeptide. These all occur in the small intestine. And eventually, by these different enzymes, amino acids are being produced, and then it can be absorbed and transported throughout our body to provide energy and nutrient. Okay, next up we have the chemical digestion of nucleic acid. Nucleic acids are digested into nucleotides, which are the amino acid, monomers of nucleic acids by pancreatic nucleases. These are enzymes. The pancreatic nucleases are produced by pancreas and secreted in the small intestine. Nucleotides are further broken down into nucleosides by nucleotidases produced by the intestinal epithelium. Usually, itong ating nucleic acid the digestion of our nucleic acid happens sa ating small intestines. These nucleosides are further acted by the nucleosidase, the phosphatase to yield nitrogenous bases, the phosphates, and sugars. Ayan. So, may mga iba't ibang term pa yan. From nucleotides into nucleosides by the nucleotidase, an enzyme, and then up to the nitrogenous bases, that adenine, the guanine, the cytosine, and the thymine, and the other part ng ating DNA or ating the nucleic acid, which is the phosphates and sugar. Alright, so for you to be aware, there is a difference between nucleotide and nucleoside. Nucleotide has three pairs, the sugar, nitrogenous bases, and one or more phosphate groups. And if the phosphate groups are removed, it is a nucleoside. And the last one is the chemical digestion of lipids. So it begins in the oral cavity when salivary enzymes, lipase, break down short-chain lipids into molecules made up of two fatty acids. A little digestion occurs in the stomach, but the rest is done in the small intestine. Usually sa small intestine talaga nangyayari yung chemical digestion, where pancreatic lipase, an enzyme produced by pancreas, break down lipids into its component molecules, namely the glycerol, the fatty acids, and the monoglyceride. Digestion of fat is assisted by bile salts produced in the liver and secreted by the gallbladder in the small intestines. So here, as you can see, the mechanism of fat digestion through the emulsification, we're going to discuss in here sa figure na to. Ayan. So by the help of our bile or our accessory organs, the liver and the pancreas, to emulsify these fatty acids and to further digest them into the smallest form of lipids, the fatty acids, and the monoglycerides. As a review, here, the digestion of lipids. In mouth, there is no chemical digestion as well as in stomach. It begins usually in intestine. And the cells of the liver produce bile that it is stored in gallbladder. Bile does not contain enzyme, but it aids mechanical digestion of lipids, and this is the process called emulsification. Now, this table gives us a summary of the discussion that we have earlier about the different enzymes, the organs or glands that secretes them, and the compound it is digesting. Okay, the amylase from the salivary glands or the pancreas, and ang kanyang dinadigest are the amylose or the polysaccharide, while the sucrase, an enzyme produced by small intestine, at ang kanyang dinadigest ay ang sucrose, while the lactase as well, it is produced by the small intestine and it is digesting lactose. And lipase from the salivary glands and pancreas, they are the compound it digests is the lipid. Pepsin from the stomach, they digest protein. Trypsin from the pancreas, they as well digest protein. Chymotrypsin from the pancreas as well, they digest protein. While the deoxyribonuclease from pancreas, they digest DNA. While the ribonuclease, they digest from the pancreas, they digest RNA or the ribonucleic acid. While the nuclease from the small intestine, they digest small nucleic acids. All right, and I guess that's the end of our discussion for this video lesson, and I hope you really learned a lot from this. Goodbye, and if you have suggestions or further clarifications and questions, don't hesitate to reach me out.